reaction pouring in, mostly negative in light of the New York Giants' decision to bench borderline Hall of Fame quarterback Alicia Nelson Manning IV. Perhaps the most heartbreaking reaction to the benching came from the man himself. Let's take a listen. I like and dislike this move for a couple reasons. I like it because you are rightfully getting one of your biggest problems off the field in a lost year. This year, 24th in QBR. Last year, 27th. Now people want to say, but Milton, he has a bad running game and a bad O-line. It's not his fault. And I get that. I understand it. But how many teams in the NFL have a bad O-line and they make do with younger, more athletic passers? Eli's getting older, slower, more senile. He's 36. You're going to pick high in the draft this year, no matter what. You got your best player coming back next year who's a wide receiver. You're going to be forced to pay him. So you need to throw in a young guy he can grow with for the next 8 years till his prime is up. It's a good move in that aspect. But replacing him for Geno Smith? That... You didn't draft him. That's not a guy you think is going to be in your future plans, I hope. Am I missing something here? What about the guy Davis Webb you took in the 3rd round? Is he injured or something? You're not going to evaluate him first? You're going against the Raiders this weekend. Give him an easy defense to build his confidence with. What, you going to wait till you go to Philadelphia again? You're going to ruin his career before it even starts by throwing him to the Wolves against that team? I guess you don't want to release Eli Manning just yet, then draft a quarterback and have a young guy starting and another backing him up. So you want to see first if Geno is actually competent enough to be a backup? That'd be my only logical explanation. Anyway, this is the perfect time to sit Eli and let the league know he's up for sale. Evaluate Davis Webb eventually to see if you actually have to draft another young quarterback in the top 10. I'm for the benching. I'm not for who's starting this week. So the Giants are moving on from Eli. Now, where does Eli go from here? I'll tell you what he needs to do. He needs to go home, get on his Mac computer, or his Dell or his HP, update his resume, and send it on over to his old head coach, Tom Coughlin. Yes, Eli Manning needs to head south towards the warm weather. Head on over to Jacksonville. If he goes to Denver, he's going to be in the same situation he's already in. Arizona is not going to do another Carson Palmer all over again. Jacksonville has grown sour over Blake Bortles and his inability to get them over the hump. Eli Manning would have a strong running back, good weapons on the outside, and an up-and-coming young defense. Denver has given up 36 sacks so far this year. Jacksonville, 19. That's a match made in heaven right there. Eli is at his most dangerous when the team carries him. Then he'll surprise you. Jacksonville is a hot team that's iffy on its quarterback. Even if you bring in Eli as a backup next year, I guarantee you he's going to take a few starts away from Blake Bortles. Eli Manning to Jacksonville. Keep an eye out for it. I'm Milton Woolley, You're now listening to The Pylon. The top rivalries in the NFL. Steelers versus Bengals. Seahawks versus the Rams. Green Bay versus Minnesota. Basically, every NFC East division matchup. But perhaps the biggest going on in the league right now, by far, Michael Crabtree versus Aqib Talib. I'm a natural instigator, guys. It's good stuff. It's entertaining TV. Again, me being an enabler, I think it's hilarious seeing the streets being brought to the NFL. See, I grew up in the suburbs of Yorktown, Virginia. I go to a far-right conservative university, so I don't fully understand what it truly means in the streets when someone snatches your chain. The significance behind it. But boy, do I get a kick out of watching all the hoopla surrounding that street code violation. And there's a problem with that. That's the immature part of my brain speaking out of its ass. When you look at the current landscape of the NFL and how touchy it is with the social issues going on and the silent protests, the people who don't understand the message behind that actual protest point to incidents like this. And they use it to minimize the larger message that more conscious-minded athletes are trying to make. Listen, in my opinion, this Michael Crabtree, Aqib Talib rivalry is great TV, but bad timing. Add this to the A.J. Green incident with Jalen Ramsey, Ezekiel Elliott's suspension, Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin leaving practice after their defensive coordinator got fired. Now this. You're giving people reason to call you out of control thugs. They may be jumping the gun on that statement, certainly, but it's incidents like this that give them a case against you. Also, Michael Crabtree, whenever you play the Broncos, please just leave the damn chain in the locker room. Aqib Talib is crazy. He's immature. He's off the hook. You know it's going to be a point of interest whenever you guys play. Leave it in the locker room. Now, speaking of protests, the NFL is offering $89 million to meet the needs of inner city communities around the country. Wow. Money talks. The players protesting should finally, be less on edge. Breathe a sigh of relief. This is what they've been fighting for. Now, I know some people will say, oh, this is just some cheap way for the NFL to just get the Negroes to start standing so fans will come back and start watching their product. Well, it takes money to make money, and it takes controversy to spark change. I know there's sort of some backlash behind it, but listen, that money can be used towards programs to help improve relations between police officers and people of color. I live in Virginia. Over the summer, I reported on a story of how they're trying to accelerate the training program for officers. That money could go towards helping improve officer training programs to help them deal with more high-pressure situations because, as Colin Kaepernick stated, A police officer receives less training than a cosmetologist, someone that does hair for a living. You can have a badge in the gun and receive less training than someone who does hair. It could go towards helping that troubled youth that only sees drug dealing as a way to make a living for his family. It could go towards improving the poor education systems in those communities. If it passes, great. And I think it should shut up those idiots who continue to say Colin Kaepernick kneeling had no impact. It did, and it's clear as day. It created chaos. It created pressure. It took over a year for it to reach this point, but it's gotten to this very point, all because of a movement he started. Now, one thing that does worry me is opposition that's coming from the players themselves, even though the owners are saying, are giving you an avenue. Dolphins safety Michael Thomas and 49ers safety Eric Reed have both withdrawn from the NFL's player coalition because they feel like Malcolm Jenkins and Anquan Bolden have hijacked the movement. My biggest question, is this a cheap cop-out from two young players that know they would have to contribute to some of that $89 million? If it isn't, shame on them. I'm not going to say it defines the movement, but if that's the case and they don't want to put their money where their mouth is, it defines them as people who just wanted to join in on a popular fashion trend, taking a knee. And the inner cities don't need you, so good riddance. Let the people who are truly committed to this matter take charge, get this thing done and over with, and get some actual progress going. I'm Milton Woolley. You're now listening to The Pylon. How about them Cowboys? How about them? Dak is back. Dez is back. Running game rejuvenated. Cowboys ain't done yet? Oh, really? Dak Prescott, 11 for 22. Just barely clearing 100 yards passing. Lowest of his career. Dez Bryant scores his first touchdown since week 7 against the 49ers, but that's besides the point because the offense clearly wanted to lean on the running game. And the much maligned defense forced 4 turnovers. Cowboys did what they had to do. But their season is by no means turned around. They just beat the Redskins. Next week, they're going to go beat the Giants, and Dallas Nation is going to be riding high off of those 2 division wins against the bottom 2 teams in the division. I don't want to sound like I'm discrediting the Cowboys. They did what they had to do, again. And they did what they're expected to do against a team that going into last night was just as bad as they were. Redskins aren't a good team. They're giving up 26 points a game on defense. Their running game is weak. This team has struggled against the Cowboys in recent years. Then next week, the Cowboys are going to mosey on over to New York and beat up on the 2-9 Giants. Second or third string quarterback. And the confidence is going to be through the roof. I doubt Dallas is going to beat Oakland without Zeke. I just do. And I don't even like predicting games until playoff time because it's in any given Sunday type of league, so there's no point. But if I had to bet, I think the Raiders are going to hold serve in Oakland. That's one loss. Cowboys definitely ain't beating Seattle. So that, hypothetically speaking, puts you at 8 losses by the time you go to Philadelphia in Week 17, and they'll be resting their starters. So that puts you at 8-8, assuming you beat the backups. Hindsight bias tells me the season was lost when Zeke ignored the concept of delayed gratification and didn't just eat the suspension early on. Now it's coming back to bite Dallas in the ass. Now, Seattle is the biggest roadblock to Dallas's playoff hopes, and they have a tough stretch remaining themselves, and they have some key injuries, some devastating injuries. But Russell Wilson is entering that Aaron Rodgers type territory. I believe in this man to escape the regular season with a playoff berth a lot more than I trust Dak Prescott not to finish the season 8-8. I'm Milton Woolley. You're now listening to The Pylon. I'm going to close out the show the way I wanted to, by ranting and venting about my team, the Baltimore Ravens, because why not? I usually don't get to talk Ravens much because it's such a small market and we've been mediocre the past few years, and we're a team that lacks true stars outside of Terrell Suggs. So I'm going to level with you guys. I hate the hoopla and the hype surrounding us right now. We play terribly when there are expectations. And then on the other hand, we win when there aren't any. So national media, shut the hell up. Please, don't jinx us. Stop talking about us. Some say our defense is overrated because we've played a string of backup quarterbacks, and there is some legit merit to that. I'm not denying that. This Sunday against Matthew Stafford will tell a lot about this defense and how good it actually is, and I can't wait to see. But this offense? This is the worst offense of the Joe Flacco, John Harbaugh era. It's pathetic. It's a snooze fest. And I can't even put all the blame on Joe Flacco anymore. I know we're a top 10 running team right now, but our offensive line is just generally bad. Some games they play out of their minds, but don't get it twisted, we're a bad offensive line. We have no receiving threat outside of Mike Wallace, who's a one-trick pony. No threat at tight end, which I feel is really hurting Joe Flacco this season because he's always had that big security blanket, whether it be Todd Heap or Dennis Pitta. Brashad Perriman is probably the sorriest receiver of all time. Thanks for making me look stupid. This offense is disastrous. We've never been known for offense, but we did at least garner enough big plays, whether it be maybe 1 or 2 a game, enough to pull our own weight so the defense can do the work for us. This offense isn't capable of doing so thus far. The popular thing to do in Baltimore is to blame the offensive coordinator, but how many offensive coordinators has Joe Flacco had? Seriously. Joe Flacco is mediocre. Our team can't draft an offensive skill position to save their life. And I'm beginning to question what John Harbaugh does as a coach. What side of the ball does he truly put his influence on? Special teams? That's where he got started. This team has oodles of talent on defense, and they always have. But the offense clearly has been lacking. Dean Pease is an excellent defensive coordinator who generally fields a pretty good unit. We need an offensive-minded head coach to balance out the very tradition of this team. And John Harbaugh is not that. Look at the Rams this year. And if that offensive-minded head coach comes in and decides, hey, this quarterback you got in place, Joe Flacco, is actually pretty horrible, then you go get him a new guy who he can morph and actually turn into a Pro Bowl quarterback, because Joe Flacco is not that. He's never been that, and he never will be that. Call me pessimistic all you want. Maybe I'm keeping myself emotionally cautious, but I don't think our offense has the stuff to guide us to the playoffs this year. And even if we do make it there, I can see us having our first one and done of the Flacco-Harbaugh era. And it will be because of those very two men I just mentioned. That's all for the show today, folks. I actually really have to use the bathroom right now, so I'm going to keep this short, but I have a few weeks left in the semester of my whole entire college career. And then after that, it's just work and this show. So you're going to get a whole lot of me once the semester's done. Don't you just love it? Stay tuned. Subscribe. I'm Milton Woolley. You now listen to another edition of The Pylon.